can shed some very interesting light on the different ways that the National Council helps developing artists. In alphabetical order, tenor Paul Groves, who's been having a good time in the new production of Ariadne auf Naxos as Brigela. Tenor Gary Lakes, who tomorrow, this being Friday, April 2nd, I believe, tomorrow you'll be singing the heroic role of Siegmund in Die Walküre, and soprano Deborah Voigt, whom we heard as Chrysothemis in the Electra broadcast, and next week we'll sing the title role in Ariadne auf Naxos. Let me plunge right in with a double question for both of you. In what year did you audition at the Met and win the contest at that time? And in what year did you make your debut? Let's start with ladies first. Deborah Voigt.
Well, thank you. I won the auditions in 1985 and made my debut last season, 1991, in Ballo in Maschera and then the Chrysothemis that you mentioned.
Paul Groves.
I won the competition in 1991, and I was taken into the Young Artist Apprentice program. And in January of 1992, I made my debut as the Steuermann in The Dutchman.
Okay, we'll want to talk about the Young Artist program. And Gary Lakes.
I was a semi-finalist in 1980.
That means you did not win.
No, they brought, at that particular time, they brought, I guess, 21 or 22 singers in and took half and kept them around for the second week, but I was weeded out in the first half, in the first week. And I made my Met debut in 1986.
How did it feel not winning? That must be a tough thing to deal with.
It was so exciting, I think, being here. I think as an American singer, at least I felt like that I would never, ever make the Met. I mean, it's one of those dreams of yours that you think, well, I'll never be that good. So just to be here for the first week and to coach with the coaches and to see these people whose names that you'd heard through the broadcast for years was wonderful. I mean, it didn't feel good not making it all the way through, but I had the pleasure of meeting Risa Stevens, who took a great interest in me, and she was able to arrange money for my studies from the years of 1980 through 1985. So you see, even though that I was not taken for the second week, it was a much more advantageous thing for me for the study because I was not ready. Due to Miss Stevens' ear, she was such a fine, great artist, I think she had heard in my voice something that would take some time to mature, and I'm just grateful that she took that interest. But that's what's so great about the national councils. I mean, they have enough really educated people and singers themselves to understand what voices must go through. So it was a wonderful experience for me.
Deborah Voigt, how did it feel for you the first time you stood on the Met stage?
It was pretty overwhelming, I must admit. Not only was it the first time standing on the Met stage, but it was the first time in New York City. It was also the first time away from home. So it was a triple whammy, if you will. But one of the things that Joan Dorneman said to us when we came into the Met on the stage for the first time was just to be quiet and let those nerves run themselves through and experience that and know what that was going to feel like and not to be overwhelmed by it. And that was really very sound advice. When the time came for the concert, I wasn't nearly as nervous as I would have been had I not had a minute to at least be on the stage and feel that feeling, right, being in that wide space.
How about you, Paul Groves?
Well, it was scary, but in the week previous, we'd had coachings, and I'd made a lot of friends with the other competitors, and we had parties every night, and Gail Robinson really made us feel at home. So I didn't feel like, dog eat dog kind of competition anxiety.
There seems to be a general feeling of friendship and cooperation, help among all of the singers at all the stages of the competition. I was very impressed with that in the past. You mentioned before that you had been chosen for the Young Artist program. Tell us a little bit about that, because I think that's very important.
Yes, it was very important for me because I think we have 12 people now in the Young Artist program, and a lot of the young artists are taken from the competition. And we have coachings every week with staff at the Met, which is probably the best staff in the world as far as musical preparation. And we get to coach anything we would like.
You mean any role or any aspect of performing?
Even art songs,
Really?
Yeah, anything we would like. And also, we get to cover roles and do smaller supporting roles in operas, which is a great learning experience. And probably the biggest learning experience for me is just watching, being able to sit out in the house doing rehearsals, and, you'd be surprised how much I could learn from, like, Pavarotti and Domingo Kraus and Gary Lakes and all the great tenors.
That's wonderful to hear. I hadn't thought of that aspect of it. Do they coach you in languages and so
Yes,
on?
we get coaching and
How about acting?
yes, we have acting,
stage deportment.
We have master classes. They bring in Regina Resnick was here this year, and we just had one with Diana Severo last week.
Deborah Voigt, you too. You didn't go through the Young Artist program, but you were here for the 2 weeks before the actual concert that you gave. Did you have a lot of coaching then?
Had a lot of coaching, and it was the first time that I had ever experienced professional coaching, and my university experience had really been limited to just private voice lessons. And also it was the first time that I'd ever been with young singers who were in the same boat. Coming from a rather small university, it's easy to be the big fish in the small pond, and that was the first time I was ever thrown in with singers who were equally as competitive and talented as I, and it was really a wonderful experience for me.
Now, what happened to you after that? You took about 5 or 6 years between that audition, winning the competition, and then your debut here. What kind of things did you do in between?
Almost immediately after winning the MET auditions, I went out to California and was invited to participate in San Francisco Opera's training program, which consisted of Merrill Opera. Then I did the Western Opera Theater, which is a 4-month touring company of the United States. We traveled with Don Giovanni. I did many performances of Don Anna, and you learn an awful lot about yourself being on a Greyhound bus for 4 months. And then I finished that experience with my Adler Fellowship, which is the San Francisco Opera equivalent of the Young Artist program here at the Met.
And Gary Lakes, what happened to you between the time that you auditioned and the time you made your debut?
Along the same line as Deborah, I went to the Maryland program, sang for most of the major conductors that I could get auditions for. And I think that's what finally I had gotten somewhat of a reputation in Europe. Singing. I sang in a Wagner concert with Jesse Norman and Daniel Barenboim in the first act of Walküre, and there was a lot of excitement and there was a lot of press there. And then about 1985, I sang for Maestro Levine, and that was it. I mean, I never forget, I sang 3 or 4 arias. And I felt very good that day, and quite sure of myself, and I could see him out in the audience, and he was very pleased, and he said, well, now you must be tired, so we have to go pretty soon, so I'd like to hear something else. And so I was really quite tired, and I thought, well, I'll just put on the dog bed. I said, well, Maestro, I do have another aria from something from Walküre, the monologue or something. And he goes, yes, I would like to hear that. And I thought, well, that's it. You just put your foot right in it. But I did sing the last aria very well. So.
How did you get started? What led you to become a singer, or at least to go into opera?
I was a football player.
Oh, that makes sense. Of
Isn't
course.
that odd?
What, fullback or?
I was a defensive tackle. I got injured my junior year in college at North Texas State University, and I couldn't play anymore. I had a back injury that paralyzed me from the waist down for about 6 months, and so the doctor, no more football, and I could always sing. I always had kind of a voice to sing in church choirs, things like that, and to really get employment, I joined the Dallas Civic Opera Chorus in 1973, and I'd never heard any opera at all. First chorus I was in was Rigoletto. My goodness, I heard these voices, and I thought it really just took me by complete surprise that there was a medium like this. I got the chance to hear John Vickers sing Florestan, Samson, also Canio, and a role he didn't sing very much, Andrea Chenier. He was a wonderful Chenier.
You've sung most of those roles now yourself.
Yes, except Chenier. But it was a great learning experience, and I became friends with him, and I had sung for him, and he'd always give me really great advice.
Deborah Voigt, how did you come to choose the profession that you're in now?
Well, I'm not really sure how it happened. I didn't grow up in a household where opera was prevalent by any means, although we were very involved in the church as a young person, as you will find many singers were involved in church choirs.
Yes.
And so I've always sung since I was a very tiny child, and when I became high school age, I decided to take some voice lessons, but really just for enjoyment. But my teacher was very classically oriented and had me do a lot of lieder and chanson and some art songs. And not too much opera. And I didn't really see my first opera till I was 19, and it was The Love of Three Oranges. And so I'm amazed that I actually stuck with it, in light of the fact that I'm singing mostly Verdi and Strauss these days. But I really just took the opportunities that presented themselves.
Did your teacher feel that there was promise there and encourage you that way?
Yes. When I got into college, I really was a choral conducting major, but my teacher was very adamant about the fact that there could be a career here if I took...
Your teacher was right.
Yeah.
Paul Groves, you were sort of nodding when Deborah Voigt was talking about starting off in the church. Is that how you started too?
Well, my father is a conductor.
Oh.
He was head of a music department in my hometown at the
Where did it
university, McNeese State. It's in Lake Charles, Louisiana. My whole family sings. I mean, we get together, family reunions, and that's all we do is sit around the piano and sing. So I got into opera. I went to Louisiana State University, and it just happened that my first year there was Bob Grayson, a tenor from City Opera, and Martina Arroyo.
Oh, yeah.
It was their first year to teach there. And they kind of took a liking to me, and they said, hey, I think you could be an opera singer. So I said, all right, sure, I'll try.
About how long ago was that?
That was in 1985.
Oh.
And I have to wish my mother and father a happy anniversary.
Oh, well, let's all join in a happy anniversary to Mr. and Mrs. Groves. Are you working on any new roles right now?
Yes. This summer I'm doing Cozy in Glimmerglass. And I think it's going to be a stretch for me, but it's going to be fun. I'm going to do Puritani in Boston in September. So I'm working very hard on that.
Deborah Voigt, what do you have your eye on for the future?
Well, I'm about to make my La Scala debut, so
Yes.
I'm very excited about that. It'll be in Weber's Oberon, a piece that Gary and I have done in concert a bit in the past and recently recorded as well.
Yeah, she was great.
So is he. We'll pay each other later, huh, Gary?
I think you're even.
Yeah. And I'm
And
also
what-
working on a lot of concert rep at the moment, the Vier Letzte Lieder in particular.
Recitals and concerts
Right.
as well. Great. Gary, what's in the future for you? You're going to
New
Japan,
roles.
I know that.
Going to
but what
Japan
else?
with the MET Crew. For the new things, I'm trying out Rienzi this summer in a concert performance.
Oh, that's a tough role.
It is a tough role. Other than that, I get offered Tristan all the time. I do the second act in concert quite a bit, but I'm only 42 now, so I don't think I'm thinking about Tristan in 98. So we have to
98, that's 5 years ahead.
Yeah, I think with Tristan it's very dangerous. You really have to know, the voice has to be settled, you have to be very mature, I think, before you tackle a third act of that.
How do you actually start? When do you begin to study the music and lyrics, and apart from actually wanting to do it? Do you get acquainted with it ahead of time?
That's what I do. I love to listen to recordings, and I have developed a way to listen to the recording, but take my own, to take the interpretation of the singer away from it, and to put my own interpretation in. Because I think listening to some of these, especially the older singers, I always remark that I think Rosa Poncel, her recording of Pace Pace is a voice lesson. If you can listen to some of these singers and be objective and put your own stamp on it, that's what I like to do.
Do you have any advice for people who are, say, 5 or 6 years behind you at this stage, just starting to audition at the Met and
Yeah,
so
there was a
on?
young tenor who asked me that 5 or 6 years ago. He said, what, Mr. Lakes, what should I do? I want to become a young Helden tenor. I said, drink a lot of beer and don't sing Tristan. So I think that's my really only advice. I think the most important thing is finding a good voice teacher. If you don't have a good voice teacher, I think you're just dead.
You seem to be nodding, Deborah Voigt.
I think it's most important that you surround yourself with people who you trust, and also know your own mind and trust your own instincts.
Is there anyone in particular that you would feel indebted to who has influenced you, speaking of people you trust?
The lady who was my primary teacher is a lady named Jane Paul, who was my college professor, and I studied with her for about 8 years. Learned a lot from her, not only vocally, but about being a good musician, about being prepared, about trying to be a good colleague, at least as best you can.
Paul Groves, how about you? Who is there someone in particular that you feel was the leading influence or an important influence in your career?
Well, both my voice teachers. My voice teacher in Louisiana, Bob Grayson, really helped me a lot. He got me very interested in opera. And then when I moved to New York, I'm trying to put the finishing touches on a established technique with Marlene Amalis. I've been with her for 3 years, and the greatest thing about her is she makes you believe you can do anything.
Well, how do you go about finding a good teacher?
I went through 3 or 4 losers before I found mine.
Really?
But as soon as I found mine that we got along so well. His name is William Eddy in Tacoma, and we're best friends. Bill is 83 years old, and he's 20. So we go out, we have a very good time together. We have a lot of laughs. But he was able to figure out how for me to sing the top of my voice, which no other voice teacher could. It took about 5 years working half step by half step up. And without him, I don't think I would have ever made it.
Then it has to be. Does it have to be a trial and error thing, or can you learn from other singers, other young singers or more mature singers? Deborah, you're nodding.
Absolutely. I think you always have to listen to other singers, and when you hear someone who you appreciate technically, and you can understand what they're doing, and then you ask them who they're studying with. And
that makes good sense.
And don't be afraid to, in a sense, audition teachers. You're going to be
Audition the
entrusting
teacher.
them with your most valuable possession, and I don't think you should be afraid to go in and have a lesson and not commit to anything more than that, and then maybe try someone else.
Very good advice from Deborah Voigt. This is Peter Allen again.